Shalom from the heart of the Jewish quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. It's Friday afternoon. People are scurrying to get home and to get in place for the beginning of Shabbat. And the city actually is beginning to quieten down. And so from here, I want to welcome you to this week's Shabbat Shalom devotional, when I seek to share just a little inspiration and bring a little peace to the close of your very busy week. We're taking a break from our Torah reading this week in order to talk about Hanukkah, since this week is the time for the Hanukkah celebration. You know, it's a holiday that a lot of Christians are not very familiar with because it happened in the intertestamental period, in between the Old Testament and the New Testament. During this time, the Greeks under Alexander the Great had conquered the world. And after his death, his kingdom was divided up between 4 generals. And the Seleucid general is the one that ruled over this area, which is now the land of Israel. And his name was Antiochus IV Epiphanes. And he was enforcing Hellenism on all the populations in his kingdom, because that is how, of course, they made them into loyal citizens. And so he was enforcing Hellenism here in the land, and it wasn't going over so well, because with the Greek language and the Greek culture comes Greek paganism. And the Jewish people shouldn't have anything to do with paganism. So there were many Jewish people that were fighting against the forces and the influence of Hellenization. Antiochus IV Epiphanes gets very upset. He actually forbids Jewish worship. He forbids the Sabbath. He forbids everything. And then he takes over their temple and he desecrates it by sacrificing what was probably a pig. Now, there was the lineage of the priestly family of Aaron, known as the Maccabees, that rose up against this, and their little band of zealots and fighters actually won against the forces, the Greek forces here in the area, which is a complete miracle. But it also happened at a time when the Seleucid control was weakening. And so they were able to not only just take over Jerusalem and rededicate the temple to the God of Israel, but they eventually spread out and had sovereignty over the Galilee and other areas, and it lasted for about 100 years. But here in Jerusalem, once they took Jerusalem away from the Greeks, and they began to rededicate the temple, and they wanted to burn the menorah in the temple. Hello, Shalom. And they only had oil for one day. So they began to burn the menorah, and the miracle is that it burned for the full 8 days until they were able to bring more oil from the Galilee in order to burn the menorah. Here behind me is a menorah that the Temple Institute has made. They have researched, and they believe this is the closest replica to what the menorah in the temple looked like. And so it's a perfect place for me to stand here and share the story of Hanukkah. Now, Hanukkah is a holiday that we should all celebrate, Jews and Christians, because the rededication of the temple was necessary for actually the story that begins in the New Testament. And in the book of Luke, it begins with the priest, Zachariah, serving in the temple, and the angel appears to him and says that he's going to have a child. And as you remember the story, he was the father of John the Baptist. And that was the beginning of the whole story of the birth of Jesus. It began in the temple. And so we have the Maccabees and Hanukkah to thank for that. So join in with the Jewish community this week and celebrate Hanukkah along with them. With that, I'm going to wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and I'll see you back here next week.